And if it's okay, I'm going to turn on the AI guy.
Yes, please do that.
All right. Here's,
All right. Well, we're at 6:32. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know some people are here from the Connecticut Energy Network. Some of us are here from through Bob Wall with your Smart Power gig. I've invited a couple of contractors. We're all interested in what's going on with solar. Let me just kind of collectively speak for all of us. The news isn't good, but we're going to set that aside with great effort. And I've invited Mike Trahan, who I think most of you already know, to go over what are our options for pushing forward with solar. So, not all is lost. Um, and there are some things that we can do at least in the short term. So, Mike, are you set to take it away?
I'm ready. I'm
Okay.
ready.
Do you want me to crank up the slideshow for you?
Sure, crank away.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
and I would probably start by saying, repeating, what I've told, all reporters who've been asking me the same question of what is the state of solar going forward, and with a few exceptions, the contractors at the residential and commercial side that I've spoken to over the last couple of months, they are a resilient bunch, and they are doing what they can to keep their companies intact. And long before there was an investment tax credit, there was a solar industry alive and well in the state of Connecticut. So, um, if you know solar business owners, you know that they are a hardy group. There's something that installers or the industry people around the country refer to as the solar coaster, meaning this industry is either in a quick climb or at a fast descent, uh, sometimes at the same time. So we're used to taking our lumps and finding workarounds. And every contractor right now is in that process. Some are extremely excited about the opportunities that remain, others less so. We did learn today that one of the major players in the Connecticut is pulling out. Posigen Solar has laid off their workforce here and are going to hopefully reshuffle the deck and come back in some fashion. But the word right now for Posigen and their, over 100 employees, probably in the state of Connecticut, they are certainly one of the top 10 installers by volume and the number one contractor that focuses on low and moderate income and disadvantaged communities. So it's a significant loss for the ratepayers here who are especially those in those communities where Posigen has made uh, uh, serious inroads. But uh, as has happened with other companies, those employees, typically will sign up, hopefully with another company, and life will go on. But um, why don't we, on that happy note, well, why don't we get started and tell you from a 30,000 foot position where you can take advantage of the opportunities that remain. So why don't we get started here, Andy? So you've probably heard the acronym ITC, referring to investment tax credit, and that's been a policy that's been around in Connecticut for a while, and contractors have gotten used to that. For those who are not familiar with it, you can apply for this tax credit. It's 30% on the cost of your solar job, and it really goes a long way towards making those systems affordable. So that tax credit had been scheduled to be phased out over several years, but that policy that has offered, credit for a long time is a casualty of federal changes that have pushed up the expiration dates, not just on residential but commercial solar as well. And let me get into that in a little bit more detail with the next slide. So when you think of solar in Connecticut, there are really two industries. There's a residential industry, there's a commercial industry, and they have different uh, interconnection policies. They have different credit issues, tax credits that they rely on. There are different ways of going through licensing for these projects. There are different requirements to install solar on those areas. So it's really there's not really one way of looking at. So I suspect that most of the people on this call today are mostly interested in home or residential solar systems. So I'll tackle that one first. So the ITC credit, for those who care, is Section 25D. And my friend Sean Reel from Earthlight is on the call, so he can call me out if I misspoke about any of these issues. But that tax credit 25D has been available. It's currently available and will remain available for installations through the balance of this year. There had been a phase out period over several years. That phase out is gone now. Well, I should say the phase out has been stepped up to the end of the year. So at the end of the year, that tax credit expires for cash sale jobs, and I'll talk about non-cash sale jobs in a moment. So next slide, Andy. So to be crystal clear, if you are considering a residential solar system, you've got to get that system completed by the end of this year if you want to take a claim of that tax credit. Solar installers right now are being inundated, as you might imagine, by those people who are familiar with what's going on at the federal level and the stepped up phase out of the tax credit. So if you're thinking about installing, don't wait because contractors are filling up their schedules right now through the end of fall and into early winter. And there's going to be a real crush on these companies to get those systems installed. Next. So, if you pay attention to what's happening in Washington and with this administration, back in July 4th, a new law went into effect, which set back or moved up the federal tax phase out to the end of the year, and it also did a bunch of other things that you might be interested in. We can talk about those a little bit later, but it's a dramatic change. It caught contractors flat-footed. I think everyone thought that this new administration coming in was not going to take a friendly stance towards renewables. No one really thought that something like this was going to come along. But again, as I mentioned earlier, contractors are trying to find a way out of it. Now, for those larger lease companies, the national or regional players that the big brands like the Posigens and the Sunruns and the Trinities, those companies depend on investor support. So while Posigen is going to go away, it's not really an indictment on their company and their operations in Connecticut and the quality of work. Everything that they did here was really great, and their dedication towards meeting the needs of low and moderate income homeowners was commendable. I don't know that there's anyone else out there in the marketplace right there that really has taken on customers with poor credit ratings and made them solar customers. And they did wonderful things. Bridgeport, they hired locally. They did all the right things. But at the end of the day, if you're not continuing to bring in investment money to cover the cost of those solar installations that's later recovered through monthly lease payments, your company, your business model implodes. And they're not the first one to have that happen. That happened to SunPower last year. So these large organizations rely heavily on the business model, and I suspect that they tried really hard to make it work towards the end, but in the end, it just didn't work out. All this, I think the investors, if you read the trade publications like I do, Investors grew spooked by the federal changes and felt as though, I suspect, that getting involved in financing solar was too risky and decided to go elsewhere. So I suspect that that's what happened. It's positive. Next slide. And so one thing that hasn't changed is so some people may not be able to use the full 30% federal tax credit in 1 year. That unused amount can be carried over to future tax years. So depending on your tax situation, you might be able to you certainly will be able to run through that 30% over multiple years. And I think that's it on residential. And so let's talk a little bit about commercial now. The next slide. Well, so here's so one bright spot out there, and I've read just a little bit about this, is that there are different rules for tax credits when it comes to cash deals. So if you're a homeowner and you're going to pay cash for your system, that's one set of tax credits that you would take credit. You would take on the tax credit. You would benefit directly from that. If you were to, there's apparently a separate federal tax credit that can be applied that would be taken by solar lease companies. So the long and the short of it is, the way I've heard it from our members at Connecticut Solar and Storage, is that there is a runway continued through the end of 2027 for solar lease customers. So while you might be very concerned, everybody's concerned about the status of solar, solar lease projects can be completed and will benefit your solar lease partner would benefit them, and the thought would be that they would apply part of that savings to the homeowner. So that's the good news on the lease side, which is not to say that if you still want to, if you are not able to pull your system together and get yourself to participate in the 30% tax credit by the end of the year, there are companies out there who are making plans for that and feel very confident that they will be able to provide a cash deal to you that will be attractive. We're gonna see if that's the case come January. But in the discussions that I've had with those folks, they feel very strongly that this is a bump in the road for them, but they have plotted out a path forward that will be good for them and good for anyone who wants to bring cash into the deal. Next slide, Andrew.
Mike, could I just pause here for a second, because you got a couple questions in the chat and one that I have as well. My understanding of the purchase model, okay, so not the lease model, but the purchase model, which is ending December 31st of this year, that if you had committed payment by the 31st, then you could, even if your system is installed in 2026, you could take the 30% tax credit for the tax year 2025. Can I ask you to comment further on that?
Yeah, so there was some guidance that came out from the U.S. Treasury Department the week before last that was supposed to kind of clear this up, and I don't know that it really has. I refer to I think Sean from Earthlights on the call, but I think there's a little bit of confusion both on the residential and commercial side. I mean, there are safe harboring issues. Some companies have purchased equipment, panels and inverters early on, and wondering whether or not that equipment will apply to the tax credit as well. But what the line in the sand that's going to be drawn as to whether you can participate in the tax credit, I don't think that it's very firm right now. I would, if I was anyone who's thinking about doing this, and you want to do a cash deal, I think you need to get that system installed, completed by the end of the year. If Sean, you want to chip in there? You guys have a different interpretation there?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in on this. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sweet. Yeah, general guidance that we're seeing is just as Mike said. The residential rules for direct ownership are governed by Section 25D of the tax code. The commercial tax credit, which also governs residential leases and power purchase agreements, that falls in under 48E. So there are different rules as far as how you can go about claiming the tax credit. I will be fully clear here in saying that I am not a tax accountant. I work for a solar company. I live in Simsbury, so nice to see the sustainable Simsbury folks on here too. So I'm not a CPA, but I can send over to you guys the language change from how the law has, how 25D has worked up to this point and how it's going to work on the go forward. The clear part to look at is under the termination clause. Under the old reading, it says that the credit allowed under the section shall not apply to property placed in service, which usually when you're talking about property placed in service, you're talking about systems getting energized. That's the old writing. Under the new writing, they changed it to with respect to any expenditures made after December 31st of 2025. Now, you read that and you think, okay, so that means that I could sign a contract, pay for the thing in full on December 31st, and I'm fine, right? Not really, because 25D also defines what an expenditure is up in section or subsection 8, where they say that an expenditure is deemed to be treated as such when the original installation has been completed. Doesn't necessarily mean energized, is the interpretation I've been hearing from some, but a completed installation, maybe waiting for the utility to come in and give permission to operate, is what would be needed to claim the tax credit under the residential direct ownership 25D rules.
Yep. Clear as mud.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, Andy, like I say, it's there's going to be some rule interpretation, and the IRS, I think, is going to be, making the call on some of these things. I'm sure people are going to come in after the year and say, hey, but I got a contract in hand and I put a deposit down on my system. Don't I get the credit? And I think some of those people might be disappointed. I think you need to hustle. I think that's the guidance that I would have. It's like get moving and get on the phone with Earthlight or get yourself a couple of different quotes and secure your space in line before you're so far back that no contractor is going to be able to take you on
Right.
and get your system completed.
Okay. Well,
So
thanks.
I'm really glad that you guys pulled this event together today, and
Yeah.
People have a chance to put the word out.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike, on that point, and also Sean for chipping in. So, tell you what, Mike, why don't you, Sean, and I, we can stay in touch over the days and weeks, and if there's any clarification, I will send that out to the CTEN network, and Bob Wall is a part of that. Anybody from Sustainable Simsbury, if you're on the list, you'll get it. But if you don't get it from me, you can get it from Bob. But yeah, let's move on. But thank you, Mike and Sean.
Yep. So I'll go real quick through the commercial rules, just so people. But I mean, it's not any clear really, and there are all sorts of intricacies to this. Some of it has to do with you will qualify for the tax credit if the materials that go into the job are manufactured in the United States. I mean, there are, as I mentioned before, there's the safe harboring of equipment. So hopefully no one's in a position of having to say, well, but commercial. So, well, commercial solar trying to get that onto your business, you got a little bit more runway or leeway here. The credit is good for projects to begin construction by early July next year. Now, what does projects that begin construction mean? I mean, that is also a little murky. Does it mean that your equipment has been delivered to the job site? Does it mean that actual construction has begun? I think that that's going to play out a little bit more as we get a little closer to that end date. But if you're in the driver's seat for pulling the trigger on a commercial solar job, you've got a little more leeway in. And as Sean mentioned, this is all part of Section 48E. So that's the commercial picture. What else do I have here, Andy, going forward? Mr. Bauer, there we go. Okay, just to not just the beginning date, but they've got to be placed in service by the end of 2027 to get that federal incentive. I think I got another slide or two here, Andy, before I wrap up. So, we're not only fighting the investment tax credit issues, there are also the issues of tariffs on solar panels, inverters, and other equipment, much of which is not domestically made. So those pieces and parts, what countries they're made in, and whether or not that country is on the list of the administration's tariff induced countries is at stake. I mean, there's a game being played, and this happened in the previous Trump administration, where countries that are not being tariffed are quickly popping up and becoming manufacturers of modules and others. I mean, that's how Vietnam got into the game a couple of years ago, although Vietnam got caught up in this most current, tax or tariff increase game. I don't know at this point how much the increased cost of modules will be applied to end users, but that's another issue that contractors have to deal with. In addition to that, there's what's happening on the state legislative level. I spoke to one of the co-chairs of the legislature's Energy Committee earlier today, and it is he feels already that there is going to be another push to come after solar contractors. I shouldn't say solar contractors, another push to come after solar tariffs in the next legislative session. That is, the legislators, especially the leadership of the Energy Committee, did a great job in deflecting changes on the commercial solar industry last year. They told us at the beginning of the battle that they were going to do everything they could to keep programs intact, and they did largely that. Whether or not they're going to be able to do it for a second year in a row is yet to be seen. There are contractors and others spent a lot of time at the legislature this past session, trying to convince and educate lawmakers about the benefits of solar. And at the end, it was nearly unanimous in both the House and Senate on a bill that agreed to leave the solar program costs as part of the public benefits charge. So a lot to deal with. Contractors are right at the center of it. One of the things that we're going to need is, and you might be hearing something, or we will be hearing something from our association in the next couple of weeks, is that we need to get more consumers engaged in this process. Legislators claim that they hear a lot from their constituents about the high price of electricity, and I'm certainly sure that that's the case. We will be putting out, some facts in the next few weeks about the true cost of solar and how much of a impact solar actually has on your electric bill. We're going to need people who are thinking about doing solar to get in the game and work collectively. And to be honest, we need people who have solar on the rooftop right now. Because I think that one reason people put solar on a roof right now is they expect others to do the same so that we can collectively have an impact, large impact. And we can only do that by working together. So our association is going to be making an announcement in the next few weeks about how to engage all of you and others, those who are thinking of putting solar on the roof and those who haven't already. So that's it. Appreciate you listening, Andy. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. We got a couple questions in the chat. One from Bob Wall. Can you comment on tax credits for battery storage systems? Do they follow disposition for the owned versus leased solar? Sean put a response in the chat. So Bob Wall, if you got that, if that makes sense to you, fine. If not, if you're here and want to unmute and just follow up with a further question, we'll take that first.
No, I just wanted some clarity since it wasn't covered, but it seems to make sense what Sean wrote that the owned model follows the owned solar and the lease follows the lease.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Good.
it has a
Well,
little longer shelf life.
yeah, Sean generally knows what he's talking about, so thumbs up there. This from Ben
Thanks.
Wright. For commercial, nonprofit, etc., cash sale, must the contract be signed before the end of this year, or only construction begins by July 4th, 26?
My understanding is the latter.
Construction has to start before Independence Day. Ironic.
Yeah. And again, it's important to talk to multiple contractors because there's different interpretations of this among them. And you can find them and their contact information on our website, donssa.org. But it's people ordinarily should be doing a lot of homework with regard to understanding, this sort of investment. And people should not take it lightly. They should get engaged. And if they're not really comfortable with these sorts of contracts, they should have somebody with them who does feel comfortable and help guide them through this process. Maybe somebody who's been down this path once already. But I suspect as things get hectic we get closer to the end of the year, that contractors are probably, as you might imagine, probably going to work with those consumers that they think are willing to pull the trigger the fastest, so that they can get them on in their schedule and get them in place. So anyone who's thinking about doing solar should come to the conversation fully understanding how this works, so that they can either make a decision whether this is a good investment or not.
Cool. Thank you, Mike.
And
Diane, sorry, Sean, you had a comment?
yeah, I was just going to comment additionally on the construction beginning by the 4th of July for next year. That too is if you are planning on utilizing the safe harbor provision, which would actually give the commercial entity, call it 4 years of runway on the tax credit. But
Sean, can you explain safe harbor a little bit for those of us who are not as well learned as yourself?
Yeah, it's basically the idea that your project is commencing construction either through actual beginning of work, beginning of installation, or through application of at least 5% of the project cost, which that 5% of the project cost is allowable for some commercial, light commercial and industrial projects, but it is now no longer going to be acceptable for larger projects that are over 1.5 megawatts.
Okay, so if you got a shovel in the ground, you could be in the safe harbor area for under 1.5 megawatts.
For under 1.5 megawatts, you could qualify for the safe harbor with 5% of the payment being made. As if you're going for the actual physical work requirement, actually digging the foundation doesn't qualify. This part of the recent Treasury guidance does actually do a pretty good job of clarifying what counts as physical work, but it's pretty extensive. I can send over some of it outside of this conversation.
Okay. Thank you. Diane, thanks for your patience. I just want to double check. Terry Eichel, I thought Terry Eichel is no longer with us. Terry, are you with us? I thought your hand was up. Okay. Diane, why don't you unmute, take it away.
A couple of questions. One is I have a friend who has a condo complex, and they were considering potentially doing solar. Are they under commercial rules? Or if they lease and they actually incorporate batteries, I'm wondering what the differential is. I saw another questioner was saying, can you walk through the economics of leasing versus owning for a project like, I don't know, a 200 unit condo complex, the kinds of leasing deals that are being offered for, I don't know, maybe that's a 50 kilowatt system plus storage, leasing versus owning. I have no idea what that would cost, but I'm just wondering how much of the investment tax credit is implied in the pricing of leasing, or does it all get conveyed to the that provide the capital for the leasing deals? Like, what advantage is it for the customers to do the leases, if any?
So I'll tackle first the condo part. So there was legislation that passed this year in Hartford that spoke to solar on condos. Prior to that, it was very difficult. The rules for allowing solar in on common areas on condominium or housing complexes like that was very difficult to overcome. And there was legislation that passed this year, and I can get the link and to that legislation and share it with you. But I think you need to first find out whether or not there are rules for your condo association, whether they allow solar. And I think that's sort of like a first step, is getting some rules in place, because there were some forces, pretty strong forces that were working pretty hard to block that from happening at one point. Leasing versus purchasing, I'll leave to Mr. Reel.
I'm sorry. Are you saying on a condo by condo basis, people should be working at the board level to change those rules if they're already in place? Or are you saying there's some kind of statewide rule against condos having solar?
Yeah. So I'm trying to. My memory's fading a little bit on what the legislation said this year. I'm gonna dig it out. I'll put the new legislation into a link in the chat. But
Okay,
for
thank you.
years, for years, condo owners have been trying to do this, and they've been blocked by their associations. And then legislation was passed that said, all right, well, you can do this, but you need to have the condo association pass rules first, and where it can go and where it cannot. And then there was another roadblock put up that I believe was overcome with the legislation this year. Let me spend a minute here. I'll try and track that down. I'll let Sean talk about the difference between leasing and owning.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, there was actually two-part legislation on this, in that I believe it was 2022, maybe 2023, that the state first started to come in with rules that would prevent homeowners associations from outright banning solar installations, but that it did leave it up to the discretion of the individual HOA to come up with different types of rules. So we actually helped the folks at the Bartlett Hills community in Portland to draft their rules that are used by their architectural review board and their executive board. But as Mike alluded to in this past session, and I cannot remember the name of the act either, they expanded on those allowances for homeowners who are looking to you know capitalize on solar within their homeowners association. Um, with regards to direct ownership versus leasing, it's ultimately going to vary case by case. If you have the cash, then you're looking to make that upfront capital investment in a solar system or a solar array from day one. You're still going to get, even without a federal tax credit, you're going to get a better return going, direct cash than you would if you were to do a lease or a power purchase agreement. But nowadays, in a post tax credit world, power purchase agreements are certainly going to resolve with a lower monthly payment and better financing options than, say, the solar loans that you're seeing today. Those are the folks who are really going to be hurting next year.
Sean, I think I answered in large part Fran's question in the chat. Where can we find out the actual cost of installation of owning versus leasing? Is there a place, a person, an organization that one can go to help juggle the purchase versus lease question? I understand for residential that's fast becoming moot, but purchasing, leasing, any guidance that's out there?
Yeah, I mean through EverSource and through United Illuminating, they have a lot of those stats on hand. But I would say even going into next year, even in a post ITC world, you're still going to see a lot of direct ownership. I think the concentration of third party ownership or leases and PPAs will be higher, but I think that there's still going to be yeah, I think that there's still going to be good viability in direct ownership and in cash itself. To the actual costs that you can see on either, I can send over EverSource and United Illuminating actually have to provide on a monthly basis average system prices for what has been sold, not yet installed, but sold. So you can see pricing on a per watt basis, as well as lease and power purchase agreement rates that folks have secured, if that answers your questions.
Right. Fran, if you want to unmute, if you've got any follow-up for Mike or Sean.
No, thank you for answering that. It's very overwhelming. I have friends who have installed solar. You hear horror stories and you hear great things, and we've been reluctant to go ahead because we're just not sure what company we can trust, and the differences. I mean, I have no idea what it would cost for a cash to buy it outright to put it on the roof versus lease. And you hear things like if you sell your house and somebody moving to buy your house doesn't have good credit, they can't take over that would prevent a sale. And so like any endeavor, you usually learn these things after when it's too late. And we'd love to take the plunge, but I just feel like there's too many unknowns, and I don't know who I could talk to clear up some of these conceptions and misconceptions.
So really, it's a little bit more than just matching dollars and cents from purchase and a lease. There's to to focus in on it, it's the fine print.
Yeah.
I think you're zeroing in on that. Not much fun to read through all that, but I think I'm saying what you're thinking, which is it's necessary. It's not a small investment. And yeah, I've had people contact me as chair of the Portland Clean Energy Task Force and mention some of the things in their lease, and I've been saying, I wouldn't sign that.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do it. So yeah, I think the
Mm.
bottom line for a lease for a PPA is whether you sign or not, you have to know what all right, let me rephrase that. Um, you have to be comfortable with what you're getting, even
Mhm.
if it's like more money than, you know, you had initially thought. If you can say to yourself, this is a reasonable deal, then
Yeah.
sign. And if you don't feel that way, then don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, it's certainly something I'd like to do. I'd like to help save the environment.
Sure. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for having this opportunity. Thank you.
you're welcome. All right.
Fran, if I could, Andy, if I could take
Go.
a
Yep.
crack at Fran's question, I mean, I would, if Fran, I would contact Fran, I would, some contractors and ask them who's done work in your town. And, or you could even go to your local building official's office and find out which contractors have been pulling permits to do
Oh,
residential solar in your town. And then I would call your neighbors and say, hey, I heard somebody, so-and-so contractor what was your experience like?
yeah.
Uh, and then hopefully you build a sense of being more comfortable
Yeah.
uh, to make that happen. I've also understand that some people will be calling realtors in their town and talk to them about what sort of resell or
Yeah.
difficulties might be involved with putting solar in a house. I think there's
Mhm.
more and more evidence to suggest that homes with solar earn more bids or higher bids than homes without. But you're right. I mean, it's once you've got a lease and you're into 25-year lease and you're 5 years into it and you want to resell your home,
Mhm.
only those homeowners who are willing to take on that lease
Yeah.
are going to be an option for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Can I just
I
one very
wanted to
quick?
give a testimonial for Earthlight, who's on this call. I just got an installation of a solar plus battery system from them. I had a previous solar system put in 2021, and I was so happy with having a direct purchase of solar that I decided to put more on an area that I hadn't realized I could put it on. And Earthlight has been great to work with. I live in Norwalk, Connecticut, and they're far away. So probably anywhere in Connecticut you could work with them. So I wanted to encourage you to look there. And I would have also referred you to Pure Point Energy, which is a Norwalk-based company, but they switched to only doing commercial. They no longer do residential. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Sean and his company and all of his colleagues who were just super on time, very good. They're actually analyzing my utilities because I'm suspicious that Eversource is overcharging me on my supply right now. And I also want to go back to the question of condos because it seems like if it's not the congregate locations within the condo complex, you could just put it out there and have it be condo by condo. You know, people could do their own deals. And you could maybe get some scale by having, 10 units decide to buy and 17 units decide to lease. I don't know whether that's been done in the state of Connecticut or if that's just a strange idea.
So I
Well,
want
I want
just
to
to
thank you for that.
just want to jump in before Mike or Sean answers Diane's question. I think Fran might have gotten cut off. So Fran, I do want to circle back to you, and also there's a question from Phil in the chat, which we'll get to as well. But Sean, Mike, if you could respond, please, to Diane's question, that would be great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, yeah, I would say um, typically the difficulty with condos these days isn't actually. I mean, certainly there's the bureaucracy of it, getting the board to agree to setting rules, establishing rules. Um, the bigger barrier, I would say, for solar deployment in condo associations comes down to what financing options are available to you. Um, I am not an expert on this, but there are some power purchase agreement and leasing providers who themselves will have just decided for now that they are not going to extend finance for condos or townhouses or those types of projects. But I believe that for loan options, I believe that you can still go through the Smart E-Loan program and finance systems on condominium units, but I'd have to double check on that. And also, Diane, I want to thank you very much for your kind testimonial. Shemay is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, you just sent Sean's kids to college, Diane. Nice one. Good. But
They
just
deserve to go.
just to be objective, I think the world of Earthlight as well. But as I say to everybody who talks to me about solar, you always get 3 quotes, always, and especially leases. I mean, if you have 3 lease documents, yeah, you gotta like pour through them, but you can see things that you like and you can see things that you don't like, and you know. Homework time. Okay, so Fran,
Yes.
follow
Just a
up,
quick,
please.
yeah, just a quick question. I like to dispel misinformation. I've been told that if you have solar on your house and you unfortunately have a fire, that it complicates fire department's work and people. So is there any problem with solar on your house if your house starts to burn?
Well, if I could tackle that one, I think like 5 years ago, I brought in a solar person to speak directly to the Portland Fire Department. Is it an extra thing for firefighters to deal with? Yes. Is it difficult? No. There are there are specifications. First of all, there's the procedures. There's those big, huge red shutoff switches, and some of the firefighters already had an app with a database of every single solar installation in my town. And so they knew going, like heading over to Andy's house, he's got solar. Let's be aware of that, and they're able to deal with that. Like stuff you've seen firefighters adjust their hoses, with a little lever. It's like either a stream which can blow through windows, or it's a nice gentle spray. And there's specifications of using a spray, and like not getting electrocuted. So there are procedures that a firefighter can employ for dealing with a fire with a house that has solar. And may I suggest, if you've got solar, this just goes for anybody, reach out to your fire department in town and say, hey, I've got solar. I could bring in an installer who can tell you what it's all about, for dealing with a fire on a house with solar, so that nobody gets hurt, so that my house gets the fire put out and you guys don't get hurt. And I think they'll be very well, that would be very well perceived. They do trainings all the time. So they want to know what's good so that they will not harm any of their members. All right, I'm rambling on, but Mike and Sean, I don't know if you wanted to add on to that.
Just that, we as an association make it a point of reaching out to firefighters. We did a big event in New Haven at the fire training center down there. We had over 100 firefighters, safety officers for departments all over the state attend. We understand that, what we're doing is out of the ordinary. And although there are roughly, I think we're closing in on 150,000 residential systems installed in the state. We'll be there, shortly. This presents an obstacle that firefighters need to be aware of. And Andy's right. Invite your fire department over to your house and just have them walk around and get them on the roof and make them feel comfortable. And there are also a number of building codes in place that make sure that firefighters, their safety, which is paramount, is taken into consideration in construction of solar.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Fran. Thanks, Mike. Let's get to Phil's question. With reference to the new tax rules, are there separate rules for storage versus panels, or is it all the same?
That sounds a little like Bob's question from earlier. Sean still?
Yeah,
Just on,
I can
yeah.
take this one if you want, Mike. It's the commercial or the battery storage rules follow very closely the residential tax credit rules, with one key exception. For homeowner owned systems, battery storage is also not going to qualify for a tax credit at the end of this year. For commercial systems or third party owned residential systems, the tax credit on battery storage will actually continue, and it does not have that 2027 sunset date. Battery storage is actually left as, yeah, left to continue on even after commercial solar tax credit disappears.
Thanks, Sean.
That's my understanding.
Yeah,
Phil, Mike, if I'm wrong, feel free to tell me.
Oh, you're the expert on that one, Sean. I'm with you.
Yeah, Phil, do you have any follow-up or specifics for Sean? Phil, can you put your mic down?
Right. You hear
Thank
me
you.
now?
Yep, good. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Shuts off the mic when I put it up. Sorry. Yeah, I've had we've had solar since 2000 in Cheshire, and then we moved down here to Milford and installed solar as soon as we got here. I'm on the Milford Energy Advisory Board, by the way, as sort of an early adopter, but not at all as an engineer or expert of any kind. And so we've been talking about putting a storage system in for some time, and I guess if we're going to do it, we should do it right now if we can possibly get it done by then.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good advice. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions or thoughts, comments? All right. Well, thanks you everybody for joining. I
Well,
think
Andy, Andy, if I could, just
yeah,
one
go
last.
ahead.
Yeah, I think just like, I think common sense would tell you that some people are going to get left in the dust at the end of the year, because their projects. Some contractors are going to end up calling and say, "Boy, I really tried hard to get you in there." They're probably not going to make some hard promises to customers towards the end of the year, but as was mentioned before, get your 3 quotes and get yourself someone you feel comfortable with at the table before you sign the contract. And speed is of the utmost importance right now.
Right. And also a good thing to do would be to engage a tax attorney, as both Sean and Mike have mentioned. Bernie, why don't you unmute yourself, take it away.
Yeah, so I think we're all about the rush at this point, and I don't want to deflect from that, but there will be days after the calendar switches. Mike, you said that the contracting world is inventive. I'm thinking there's probably some cost like that could come out of the system. For example, permitting could get a little bit more streamlined. Our energy prices continue to go up, so the value of solar is sort of tied to how much cost you can avoid. Maybe it's another session, but do you have any thoughts on what the post ITC solar world looks like? I mean,
Well, we're trying to mitigate the loss of that 30% through as much as we can through by reducing the cost of development. And you mentioned permitting as one big one. So permitting continues to be a significant soft cost, and we're trying awfully hard to get the introduction of something called solar app into communities across the town. And those of you who are on your local town clean energy boards or commissions, I would urge you to consider. I'm happy to talk to you about getting solar app. For those that don't know solar app, it was designed by the U.S. Department of Energy. It is a software that's integrated with the municipality's existing platform. It comes at no cost. There is some integrating costs. Maybe some computer experts need to get involved at the local level to get that to merge it with what you have. But after it's in place, it allows contractors to get instant approval, meaning right away they submit an application and within minutes they get approval to go ahead and move forward on the work, so long as that project in the application touches all the bases with regard to local requirements. So, I mean, we need to do that and more. We need to find other ways to reduce the cost of solar, and that might be the temporary lifting some of the current requirements on development costs and policies and requirements for a couple of years until we get a footing back. But yeah, it's a good point, Bernie. We need to reduce the cost of development, both at the residential and commercial levels.
And some of that groundwork is starting to be laid already with some of the developer and utility calls have led into reduction of interconnection costs with the utilities, particularly on residential systems. And at some point fairly soon, we're also going to see the allowance of certain types of installations that were not allowed in the past, which will actually drive down labor costs substantially as well. These are technologies that have been used with great success in California and other burgeoning solar markets, and they're safe. They make installs happen a lot more quickly, which just reduces the overall cost stack for the homeowner too.
Good. Thank you, Sean. Okay, I just want to point out my clock has 7:29, so Diane, we are going to get to you. And Mike and Sean, I'm sure you guys are willing to stay on a little bit if people have further questions. So it's now's the time, folks, where you either show yourself to be an energy nerd or someone who has a life. And those of you who have lives, if you need to drop and go do stuff, thank you again for joining. We are going to, with CTEN, we're going to try to keep you as up to date as possible with developments as they come down the pike. And a recording of this will be sent out as soon as we get that together. So, but Diane, have at it, kid.
I just had a question and an idea. One, an experience that the idea is for the state of Connecticut, if there's a way to get a bill passed that overrides planning and zoning restrictions related to appearances, because I found out my planning and zoning department had a setback requirement of 60 feet. For any structure. I was trying to put like a little cabin around my batteries, and it would have been right behind my stone wall, right at the street level. And they said no to that because it was too close to the street. But if there could be a special exemption for solar batteries, because basically solar batteries are really mission critical. And these 1950s vintage appearance based restrictions, I think it shouldn't be a town by town issue. And I know that my town will change it because we've got a really progressive guy on our planning and zoning that got Costco to put in canopies when they wanted a new facility for their auto department in Norwalk. So that happened because planning and zoning said, hey, if you want the approval to do this, you need to do some canopies. Now, my other question is about canopies and whether those are going to be considered commercial and still be subject to the July 4th deadline, and whether there's any additional benefits to them and whether Smarty loans are available for them?
Well, there's certainly commercial sized projects. I don't know if there are, and perhaps Sean could answer if there are residential, sized solar canopy projects. I don't know that there are just yet, but certainly there are probably a couple of dozen commercial solar canopy projects scattered across the state. They're difficult to develop because the materials involved, the metal stem, increases the cost of those projects to the point where they can't compete in the low bid wins contracting bid process that the utilities run right now. So when you add that added cost, puts those projects at the bottom. Although in your neighborhood, Ridgefield just put a large system, like a megawatt size system, think in their high school
Good.
canopy project. So it can be done, but the planning for those needs to be extensive, and I think that there are also some planning and zoning regulations that come with that need, which is another hurdle that municipalities have to clear before they go down that path.
Yeah.
Sean, are you speaking to the group?
No.
No, no, okay.
Well, that's embarrassing. Whoops. I've seen some residential carports, and by that I mean three. Um, there aren't too many for some of the reasons that Mike brought up. They're fairly cost prohibitive, but it's possible. But they if it's built for a residence to benefit a homeowner, it's going to follow the residential rules. And I don't think that there will be any leasing providers or power purchase agreement providers who would accept that kind of financing.
Just thinking for municipalities who are going to bother to put in a set of EV charging systems and they're in an urban heat island, I could see canopies being justified by sustainability task forces, for other reasons, because land is at a premium in our cities, and the municipalities have a lot of it, and they don't have very many solar chargers yet, and yet the fleet of personally owned employee owned EVs is getting bigger.
Well, just to make the distinction, there's carports off a residence, and then there's canopies for parking lots. So, are Diane and Sean, forgive me for being forward, but are you guys talking about the same thing?
I probably wasn't. I look at for solar canopies commercially, as Mike alluded to, they have been more costly to develop, to deploy. There's a lot more engineering work that has to be done too on those. Um, the closest corollary I can find on a residential side, if you're looking at something that's going to be um, installed at a residence, is when you're looking at a simple carport, which are built by the same people a fair number of times, but it's you're not going to see them developed all that often.
All right. Diane, if you're all set, we'll move it along to Bernie.
So times are tough. We are going to get forced into things that wouldn't be our first choice. And an example of such would be this idea of plug-in solar. So in Germany, for example, it's called balcony solar. It might be one panel, it might be two panels. You put it somewhere where the sun does shine, as opposed to where it doesn't. And I made Andy laugh. That's always a good thing. And it's not interconnected in any fancy way. It's plugged right into a typical circuit. Now, right now, I don't think it's legal anywhere but in Utah. but it's something that I think it's small for any individual, for any one of us on this call. Wouldn't make much of a difference, but if you aggregate it up, it could make quite a bit of contribution to the grid, and it would save you a little bit of money. So I throw it out there as just an idea that has really caught on in Germany. If you want to look up balcony solar, as that's it.
All right. Any further questions, thoughts, comments? Diane?
You're on mute there.
So you're good? Okay. I'm
Andy,
sensing.
I would just say that I did hear Diane's the language that she suggested about the setback, and I wrote that down as far as potential legislation next year. I mean, if there are others on the call who are involved with their local clean energy groups, I mean, I'd love to work with those groups and put together a list of here's 5 things you could do at the municipal level to speed up and reduce the cost of installing solar in their towns. And if that's something that local groups want to work with their local elected officials, I'd be happy to participate in something like that.
Okay.
I think it's critical that you do that, Mike.
Yeah.
That's why Andy is in the seat that he's in.
Tell you what, when I send out the recording, I will include that. And also about the firefighters, because Mike, you're able to offer assistance in both those directions, reducing permitting, P&Z concerns, and educating firefighters, if I understood correctly. Okay, good. All right. I think that is bringing us to the close. Um, so I'll pause in case we're not there yet. But I just want to, leave people like, let's be, long-term optimistic. Let's understand that, yeah, things are not going the way we had hoped at this moment, but we're in the right, okay, and they're in the wrong. All right, I want to be very clear about that. So, um, yeah, that'll do it for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everybody has a good night. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you,
you,
Sean.
Andy.
You're welcome.
Thanks.